All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a look at a piece of online commentary called A Righteous Perspective. Now, this piece makes a really strong case for the Trump administration's successes, and maybe more importantly, what it sees as the forces trying to cover them up. We're going to walk through its main arguments to see exactly how it builds that case.
So the first thing to notice is how this all starts. It doesn't open with policy debates or statistics. No, it kicks off with this incredibly personal, really emotional statement. This quote right here, it sets the entire tone. It frames what's happening not as just politics, but as these massive, life-altering events that are literally giving hope back to people who thought it was long gone.
And from that very personal starting point, the commentary moves into its first huge claim that this presidency isn't just a successful one, it's a truly historic, once-in-a-generation kind of thing.
Now look at this list. This is what the source presents as the evidence. It points to what it calls impending freedom in places like Venezuela and Cuba, and major shifts in Iran, and calls them direct accomplishments. But then it goes even bigger. It makes these sweeping statements that the West is healing, and that we're on the brink of ending communism entirely. It's framing these as wins on a scale we haven't seen in like 100 years.
And here is where the source basically throws down the gauntlet to the audience. The argument is, hey, these achievements are so massive, so important that they should go way beyond whether you personally like the president or not. It's suggesting that if you can't give credit, the problem isn't the politics, it's your own personal bias getting in the way. Okay, so that raises a big question, right? If these victories are so monumental, why isn't everybody talking about them? Why aren't there parades in the streets? Well, the commentary has a very, very clear answer for that: the mainstream media.
And this is the absolute core of the argument. It's all about perception being manipulated. The source is saying that people aren't excited because they're being prevented from seeing the real story. The idea is that the media is deliberately hiding the good news or twisting it so it sounds bad.
This chart really lays out the two competing realities that the source is describing. On one side, you've got the media, which it calls a propaganda arm that just tells people what to believe. And on the other side, you have what it claims is the actual reality, that people are celebrating freedom in other countries, but that news is either totally ignored or spun negatively here at home.
So to prove this big theory about media bias, the source doesn't just stick with broad claims. It zooms way in on one specific event, a protest that happened in New York City, to use as a kind of case study. Okay, so here's the story as the source tells it. You have a small protest happening, led by a guy named Jake Lang. Then, a much bigger counter-protest shows up. And right in the middle of all that, two guys from the counter-protest reportedly throw a homemade bomb. Luckily, the device didn't work, and they were arrested.
And this quote gets right to the heart of the source's frustration. The person being quoted is furious that the mayor came out and publicly called the original protester, Jake Lang, a white supremacist, but in their view didn't use language that was nearly as strong for the two guys who actually threw an explosive device. They wanted him to use the word terrorist.
This table really just breaks that argument down visually. The claim is that the framing was totally lopsided on purpose. The Christian protester got hit with these really heavy labels immediately. Meanwhile, the guys with the device, yeah, the bomb was mentioned, but the source says their motives were basically brushed over and downplayed.
So this whole NYC incident, it's not just about one event for the source. It's used as a launchpad to talk about a much bigger idea: the administration's entire approach to leadership, which it describes as being proactive, not reactive.
This right here is the key phrase. The source holds this up as the administration's #1 strength. This idea of being proactive, of stopping bad things before they even have a chance to happen.
And to really drive this point home, the source makes this direct historical comparison. It says the Trump administration was proactive by taking action against Iran to stop a potential 9/11 2.0. Then it contrasts that with the Clinton administration, which it claims had the chance to take out Osama bin Laden and didn't, and inaction it blames for letting 9/11 happen. The message is simple: proactive leadership saves lives, while reactive leadership costs them.
So after laying out this whole case, the historic wins, the biased media, the proactive leadership, the commentary doesn't just fade to black. It ends with a very clear, very direct call to action for anyone watching.
And here it is. The solution it offers is a simple two-step process. First, just stop watching and reading mainstream media altogether, boycott it. And second, go out and find different sources, alternative sources that, in its view, will just give you the straight facts, no spin. This is presented as the only way to really see what's going on.
And that really brings us to this final question. Because what we've just walked through, it's more than just a political opinion. It's a look inside a worldview where the press isn't seen as a source of information, but as an active opponent. The real takeaway here isn't about deciding who's right or who's wrong. It's about understanding what it means for our society when a whole lot of people feel like they have to go to completely different places just to feel like they're getting the truth.